do you know the Gambia? They started naming towns. And I said, I'm living well here because of these small farms that I have there and the small projects. I said, I'm a German, I'm a lady. If I can make that much, you as a young Gambian, you can make much better than them. So stop coming to suffer here because this is Europe. It will not make you better because at the end of the day, in your old age, you go back to Africa, you have nowhere to live. You see, here you are living from hand to mouth. And the situation is going to get worse, not change. The Gambian later on met me and said, sir, I'm back. I said, what do you mean you are back? I said, you know why I came? I said, no, I don't know. Said, a German lady who has been here, she said she always saw you pass. I said, well, tourists would always see me pass. She said, yes. She told me this. She asked me, what am I doing here? And I thought I saw it in the racist context. And then, so he said he went to another German who has always been coming here. And then asked the German for his opinion. And the guy said, well, you see, I don't want to offend you, but you're really wasting your time. He said, I'm planning on going to the Gambia and settle there permanently because I know what I can make there. I can't make it here. And you, as a young Gambian, you are here, you're living hand to mouth. But he said, I didn't want to offend your feelings because you may see it negatively. You know, but thank God that this lady told you, she gave you the best advice. So when he came and said, do you know Eric something? I said, what do you mean Eric? I said, well, he's a tourist. Said, oh, do you think even the Minister of Tourism doesn't know all the tourists that come to this country? He said, well, I'm here because of this. I said, oh, so what, did you see anything to the contrary? He said, the lady should have told me earlier. So what do I do? He said, I set up a company and what I'm making in a month, I couldn't make it in 3 months in Germany. You know. But that's life. You see, one thing about the world is that we know where we're born, but we don't know where we'll call home later on. But what is more important is that we know one thing for a fact. We know where we are born. Never forget where you come from. No matter how bad it is, remember that is your origin. If you paint a negative picture of where you come from, those who are hosting you will see you in that negative category and tomorrow you cannot defend yourself. That's the bottom line. So if you Africans in the diaspora sit around and insult Africa, those people you are trying to please will also not respect you. After all, they say, oh, after all, you left your Africa because of this and that. So they give you whatever they want to give you, and you will have to accept it, because already, if you say your grandfather is bad, start criticizing. What would you say if somebody say, oh, your dad also is bad? And I say, oh, no, don't insult my dad. I say, oh, didn't you say your grandfather is bad? So if you sit down and insult Africa thinking, oh, yes, I will stay here for a long time, they will treat you based on what you said. And you start talking and say, oh, this is better than what you get in Africa. So once again, thank you very much for this. We will work on the projects that we are talking about in this movie. Once again, you have our support, and we want to thank you. We also want to thank you and Nollywood, because they came to the Gambia. They encouraged, what we had were local drama, and they came and said, look, there's a lot of talent here, and some of the Nigerian movies were shot in the Gambia using Gambian actors and actresses, and for which there is a huge interest in the film industry. This was thanks to Nollywood, who gave the Gambians a chance to appear in an international movie. So once again, thank you very much. As far as I'm concerned, I don't care where you come from. We are Africans, and that is what is important. Even an African from Alaska or the North Pole is an African. That's the way it is. Anywhere in Africa, you are a citizen of Africa. Because when we go to the non-African continent, they don't see you as Nigerian or Gambian, they see you as African. The two of us will be treated as black. So let us work together. Boundaries and countries, yes, we have an address somewhere in Africa. But what is more important is the fact that we are black. So wherever we are, let us work together. Finally, when you look at Israel, it's very strong. It is very strong not because of the Jews in Israel, but the Jews outside of Israel who see Israel as their homeland. No matter what happens, they will defend it to the letter. At Africa, a continent of almost 1 billion people, if all of us behave that way and see Africa that way, Africa can regain her lost glory. Once again, thank you very much.
Hello and welcome to the interview. My guest tonight is Dr. Kanti Solanke. He's a senior surgical consultant at the Royal Victoria Teaching Hospital. He's an Indian and grew up in Uganda, did his schooling there, and of course did his residency in pediatric and surgery at the Mulaga Hospital in Uganda. Dr. Solanke, welcome to the interview.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure for me for such an invitation. It's a privilege of mine. Before I start, I must pay my respect to late Mr. Sanyang, whom I knew pretty well for last 6 years.
That is the former Director General.
Former Director General.
Very well. Doctor, I know the late Alaji Modu Sanyang was your patient.
He was, before he went to Cuba.
Very well. Doctor, let us first of all look at your stay in Uganda. There is where you started your surgical and pediatric work in Uganda.
In Uganda.
Very well.
Yeah.
Can we just rewind the hands of time and go back to those times?
In Uganda, I left for post-graduation to London, England. That was that was in 1968, just before Dada. In England, I was doing a post-graduation for fellowship that is called FRCS in surgery. So I stayed there. Eventually, in London, in 71, I married with my wife, who is also a doctor and a specialist in anesthesia. And subsequently, we had 2 children in England. In fact, we lived in England for a long time. It was one of the time, during that time, FRCS time, I got sensitized to rubber gloves And then I thought